Well, it seems that Bank of America is still very, very disappointed with the market choices of Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. Let's see what they had to say in their new update, and let's see how much trouble Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro is actually in. Welcome on in, Dragon Folk. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I know I am. My name is Ashen Wings, and welcome on in to the lair. So, today we are going to be talking about more drama in regards to Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast and their very, what seems to be greedy aspects in regards to their babies, not only Dungeons and Dragons, but also, of course, Magic the Gathering. We do talk about card games here. So, something that I wanted to touch in on was the update from this. Bank of America did another little insider kind of article on Bank of America talking about the state of Hasbro and its stock. And it seems that Bank of America thinks that Wizards of the Coast is ruining its reputation with its consumers and that they are continuing to destroy the goodwill of their customers. So that very well has a lot of implications. Not to mention that Bank of America also is predicting that their stock could drop another 29% sometime pretty soon here. So Hasbro's stock has been steadily declining since the addition of the Magic 30th Anniversary Edition that we have talked about here on the channel. And well, this seems to be no different. It seems that because Wizards of the Coast is continuing to pump out a whole bunch of product and nobody is still able to keep up with any of that product, we are seeing the same backlash from a bunch of different other, companies and financial places talking about the state of Wizards of the Coast and how much more damage they're doing to the state of their game compared to whether or not they're doing anything good for their game. Now, this article does also talk about the OGL stuff that happened with Dungeons and Dragons. I don't recall if I made a video about it off the top of my head, but I'm sure I did. The OGL being the original game license for Dungeons and Dragons. It is something that the players have used to build entire communities and really make a good space for themselves and really find a comfortable way for everybody to play. And they were planning to revoke that to then try to monetize D&D more. They did talk about that on the fireside chat that, Chris Cox and a bunch of the other big wigs over at Hasbro, they know what Dungeons and Dragons is. Everybody knows what Dungeons and Dragons is, but they were trying to take a step to monetize it further, and that was not anything anybody liked. There were like 70,000 people who signed a petition to keep the OGL around. People were unsubscribing from D&D Beyond in droves. There were so many people, and it really sent a message to them. And eventually, they got what they wanted. The OGL, or the original OGL that was in place previously, was, not revoked in any way possible. It was not abolished, and they essentially gave players two different ways to play. You can play through this set of conduct or this set of conduct, and that was their solution. So they did not abolish anything. Obviously, it's still a little rocky in that area, but I do know that the D&D players, they just want to have creative freedom and not feel like they owe Wizards of the Coast like 40% of their earnings if they earn anything. But I think the other thing that was a big deal was the fact that Wizards of the Coast was essentially saying that if you made anything original under this new OGL, that like technically no matter how much money you made, we have the right to come in and say, hey, we don't want you working on that project. Stop it. And then, cease and desists and stuff would end up happening. And I'm sure this would be a more predatory way for Wizards of the Coast or, Hasbro to essentially steal ideas from creators and use them for their own game. It was very bad, but the players ended up banding together. I think they banded together more than Magic the Gathering players ever will. And they ended up fighting back, and lo and behold, they got what they needed. And it worked out for them. But it's still an uphill battle, right? You're still not sure what Wizards of the Coast is up to. And that goes the same to say with Magic the Gathering. Because while we obviously know, right, I think it's been said several times before in the past, in these past few months, as we've seen things all the way from, the Magic 30th stuff all the way until now with Phyrexia All Will Be One, we see a lot of releases. A lot of these releases are done in a way faster way than anybody would have expected. And nobody wants to have to deal with a new set the second a set is released to the public, right? We're already talking about the fact that by the time the complete edition comes out, the complete bundle for Phyrexia All Will Be One in early March, there will probably already be spoilers for March of the Machines, which is the next set to come out for Magic the Gathering Standard. So a lot of people are obviously still upset about that specifically, but we didn't see any change. There's been no change from the last time Bank of America had talked about this problem to now. There has been zero change in direction in regards to any of their production rates. And that is because and it's what I'm sure, right, is because I'm not like sitting here defending Wizards or anything, but Wizards again works 2 years in advance. Essentially, they have this game plan planned out, and they know when they're setting stuff up. They've allocated time at the printers specifically for these things because they don't own the printers that they use. So it's all about utilizing what So it's all about utilizing what assets you have available to you at the time. With Wizards of the Coast not owning their own printing company, they can't just decide to make their own stuff at will. I believe they have to rent out, the time slot to print the certain stuff. They have to make sure they're not fighting in time slots with other card games or other places who might be using those printers for other jobs. It is, I'm sure it's a hassle, right? And you would think this billion-dollar company would just buy out a printing company, but they have yet to do that, from what I know. So who's to say? Maybe that's where they should start, is there. But even having to work 2 years in advance, it is unfortunate to see that there's been no change. Wizards of the Coast did not pivot their direction. The most they did is when they were doing the very first look for Phyrexia All Will Be One, they told us, all right, cool, here's the deal. You guys are so backed up with a bunch of stuff, right? You are sick of spoiler seasons. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to show you Dominaria Remastered today, and then we're going to spoil the whole thing in one day. And on top of it all, Phyrexia All Will Be One will be pushed back 1 week, which is, in a great span of things, not a lot of time. So this was, even before the 1 week of pushback for the release of of Phyrexia All Will Be One, we were still like, it felt like almost like 2 weeks full of spoiler season. Right? You had to go through all the commander stuff and then all the main set stuff. And then you talk about the jumpstart stuff and talk about all the different, the variants that you can find in there, talking about the complete bundles. There was a lot. There was a lot to take in regards to the set. And with them not stopping, Bank of America is looking at this and going, well, some reporter or something had talked about going and talking to people who are in the hobby, right? People like players, store owners, and so on and so forth. And store owners are right in that same avenue, right? Store owners are supposed to be the pillar of Magic the Gathering from what we know, right? And Wizards of the Coast has even said that the stores, the LGSs, are the pillar, right? They're the reason that this game was able to flourish as much as it was in the first place. And right now, every LGS around the world that is not properly set up in a way is suffering more than they should be because they're allocating product in a weird way. I can get into a whole video about how I would imagine LGSs are not making good choices right now into this kind of bad era of Magic the Gathering. But for the most part, y- it, there's a lot of people who are just not wanting to buy product anymore. Right? People aren't buying sealed product from LGSs. People are waiting until it goes on sale on Amazon and they're buying it there. And Hasbro still gets the money. You know, it's just whatever, take whatever Hasbro gets minus the amount that Amazon would get for it. And that's kind of what you're looking at. But what we're seeing here is we're also seeing the inevitable long term value of Magic the Gathering drop significantly. There's a lot of people who do not want to buy sealed product to keep sealed and then wait 6 years for what the market does for it, right? There's not a lot of people who want to speculate on singles anymore. There aren't a lot of people who want to speculate on, some other specific set within the general last like 2 years ish. I would say the 2020 stuff, so like Throne of Eldraine and Ikoria and all that, those are sets that people are sticking to, but pretty much anything after that, unless it was like Double Masters 2022 or some master set, most people don't want anything to do with it. Because why would they waste their money on something that is print to demand and is not really balanced in a way? You know, there's talk of power creep, there's talk of, it's just it can only go up. There's no real ceiling for the power creep. It has to keep going. And then when eventually they make something that's too powerful, Wizards will go, okay, cool, hold on. We made something that was too powerful. That was our bad. We should have caught that in testing. We'll ban it. And at that point, are you just waiting for a ban? Are you just waiting for bans to happen with your deck that you love playing? But the value of everything is not there because Wizards is trying to do some short-term gain stuff. So they're trying to make a buck real quick by making a bunch of flashy product and reminding everybody that gambling is a real problem. I mean, they're not reminding you about it, but I'm reminding you about it, okay? There are people out there who buy these packs, who buy boxes from all these places, whether it be LGSs or they be Amazon or whether they be their cousin or whatever. They buy all these packs and it's an addiction. I mean, it's a gambling addiction essentially. And not many people view it as such. You know, they go, oh, well, I earned my I paid my bills and everything. I earned this fun money. I can do it. Yeah, obviously, right? You can do what you want with your money. But Wizards is not going to stop doing what they do because they're getting that short-term gain. And all these new players who are getting into it, or maybe players who are not as educated or do not wish to be as educated in the matter, they don't care, right? They don't care about it. Let's talk about the flippers, right? The flippers are probably not even looking into the fact that the Phyrexia All Will Be One complete bundle is probably due for several reprints down the line because it was never said to be reprinted. So it's all an unknown, and a lot of it is all speculation. But when you're ignorant about the situation and you don't really know anything about it, you just kind of put the blinders on, right? You put them on, and you just don't worry about any of that stuff. You play your game, right? You play the game that you love, and that's what you do. And I think that's while that's a good way to look at it, right? It's not enough for me as a content creator or as just a person who enjoys the game itself to have you go, okay, well, like maybe don't do that, right? Maybe don't buy packs, because I don't want to take away the fun from anybody, right? But something needs to be done, and eventually Hasbro is going to learn, right? Their stock is going to continue to drop. They are not going to see a lot of profit in the far future. And who knows, right? We may again still be on that 2-year time span where things are going to suck from like now all the way until like maybe the end of 2024. Things might just suck. And that's going to suck for the company. Luckily, the company is a $1 billion company now, so it doesn't really matter. They've got the money. to mess up a little bit. So I think at the end of the day, Bank of America is doing what it's supposed to do and kind of assess companies to see, whether or not there's something that other shareholders or anything of the sort are people who want to continue to hold shares. And having two articles like this come out probably does not look too great if you're a shareholder for Hasbro. But if you're a diehard fan, you love the company and you believe that what they're doing is right, then, I don't know what's going to tell you that that's not the case. They had to lay off a whole bunch of people recently, and I'm not sure whether or not that's because of the fact that they maybe hired too many people during the pan pizza. And when they did that, they expected the pan pizza to be going on a little bit longer than it was. And now that it's over ish, now that it's over, they have to cut out employees, right? Because they did not expect that to happen. And obviously that is awful. You do not want to be laid off from your job because the big wigs of the company were like, well, we don't need any more bodies here anymore. So like because you're new or because you're part of X department or whatever, and we don't really need your input, we can get you out of here. Right. And I'm sure they let go of a lot of people who were like whistleblowers for the company, right? I know WotC is not a huge employee base and Hasbro is not much larger, but it's still enough to make a big difference. And you don't really like to see people lose their jobs over something like this. So, except for the head, the head honchos up there, right? They're making those poor decisions. They deserve to lose their jobs. I believe that entirely, right? They're making absolutely poor decisions on their business models. They are not keeping the relationship with their consumers in check, and they continue to just think about the fastest dollar they can make on the cardboard that they produce. Like they're producing, alpha stuff right now. Like there would be no way that they print alpha and it just like sells like hotcakes, right? And it might. I think a lot of people say it might, but I'm skeptical. I think that would truly be a huge downfall for Magic the Gathering. Um, I don't think that it's anything that needs to happen. I think if it's like a proxied fund thing, sure, but it has to be at an affordable cost, and it's still got to provide a great draft or limited environment. I don't know. There's too much speculation in hand, but again, Bank of America comes through and tells us how they see it with their numbers, and they expect a 29% loss coming into this next quarter, simply because they continue to just not have a good. They continue to not have good faith in Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, and I think at this point, a lot of us don't have a lot of good faith. We see the new cards that are coming out in Phyrexial would be one, and we go, oh, cool, that would go great in my modern deck. Or that would go great in my Pioneer deck. Or that would be cool in my standard deck. Or maybe we want to try the limited format, right? There are ways to go about buying cards without having to directly send your money to Wizards of the Coast. They're still making enough money on secret layers and so on and so forth. There's that Phyrexia bundle that's coming out. From Beetle and Grimm. I'm sure Wizards of the Coast is getting a cut of that too. I don't know. There's a lot of weird stuff, right? I'm not super hyped about the idea that they're continuing to do this, but I also think that, and this is probably my optimism talking, I think that in a solid, I don't know, maybe 5 years, right? We're going to look back on this time and we're going to go, wow, do you remember how bad it was then? Like that was awful, right? Good. It's a good thing that it's not like that anymore, but we, again, right? That's optimism talking. Right now, I'm not allocating a lot into Magic the Gathering. I know a lot of people who watch the channel here, who are even patrons of the channel, have stopped playing Magic the Gathering altogether in a way, or at least they're just like not buying sealed product anymore. And they're strictly buying Flesh and Blood instead, because Flesh and Blood is, the company is doing pretty well for itself. And there's a lot of support for that company and its product coming out over at Legend Story Studios. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about all this. This is enough ranting from me. Hopefully you guys are, being cautious in your purchases. Don't just go out and buy like a bunch of draft boxes of something that you're not 100% sure on. At this point, you should be buying boxes, like sealed cases. You should be buying them in a way kind of like you would buy stock, right? Like look into the company, look into the set, find out what is available in the set and what is not, and how to properly approach that. And hopefully you come across enough information to make a more educated choice on what to buy and what not to buy. So let me know in the comments down below if you guys are buying any kind of crazy stuff these past few months. And make sure to like the video, as well as subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. And we do have a Patreon link in the description down below if you wish to join that and support the channel in a more monetary sense. We do also have the channel memberships here for the channel. So anyway, is absolutely appreciated, but it is absolutely not necessary. So thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate your support, and I will see you all very soon. Nerd out.